Woo boy. All right. How the hell do I add people to this thing? Um. Boom. Easy peasy. What's up, bro? Just waiting for Ruby to hop on. Pretty sure I sent her a thing. Pretty sure. Oh, there we go. How the fuck do I get her in here? Ruby, how do I get you in here? Give me answers. What the fuck did I just do? How the fuck? There we go. Should be going. I clicked it.
Ah! Got it.
What's up?
Hello.
What's going on?
Do we have a time lag or are we actually synced?
Hang on, you're breaking up a little bit. Yeah, I don't think there's like a huge timeline. We're just chilling. I just dropped Kayla off at the park, so.
Hey. Hello.
Yeah, she just wanted to like walk around and do some stuff, so it seemed like a good time to do it. I don't have anything particularly going on besides this, and then what do you have planned for today? It's like super early there.
It's almost 6. I have a full body session planned for today. I only train 3 times a week and then I run 4 times a week. So it's different, but I'm actually enjoying it because I used to hate running and now I have a half marathon that I'm doing in 4 weeks.
So do you train and run on the same days or opposite days?
No, I train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, run Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So do you just like have overarching goals to do this half marathon? Does it like mean anything specific to you, or are you just like doing it just for fun?
This is the interesting part. So I started off. Feedback. I started as a figure competitor. And then I moved into powerlifting. So I did about 8 bodybuilding comps. And then I moved into powerlifting, started competing nationally. So I went to the thing called Pro, which had people from overseas compete as well. And then it took me a while to let go of that strength mentality. But I realized soon that my blood pressure was like 140 over 80 something. And my max heart rate was like 161. I did the Cooper's test. I'm like, wow, I'm so freaking unfit. I can't even run 1 kilometer without wanting to kill my coach. So I'm like, I hate running. I really hate running, but I need to challenge myself because I'm so in love with the gym that it's just a part of me. I'm too complacent and I hate being complacent. Like, I need to challenge myself and I want to do uncomfortable things because the way that I got into training in the gym is that if I push myself in this, it's going to make it's kind of like David Goggins, but a lot more relatable to other people. Because if you overcome things in the gym and if you push yourself to do uncomfortable things and you create an identity for yourself that I'm not a quitter, which I always used to be, and that goes into the whole conditioning of when you were younger. I always used to give up on things, but now it's like, no, I love challenging myself. I love the discomfort to the point where sometimes I cry halfway through my sprints because I'm putting so much effort into it. But I'm just like, no, I'm going to do something I hate. I'm going to make myself uncomfortable doing it and fall in love with it. And now I just love that endorphin rush so much. It's like, no, I want to keep pushing myself. I want to keep challenging myself and say, okay, I can do this. And my health markers have never been better. And I don't know, it's like I love discomfort. And the more that I challenge myself to do uncomfortable things, I feel like I'm stronger as a person for it because it's like, wow, I can do that. And yeah, so now I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do a half marathon. Who knows? Maybe next year I'll be doing a marathon, but I also have a triathlon bike. So who knows? I might even do a triathlon. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really what it takes is like there's like a season for everything, you know what I mean? Like it may not be a forever thing, but it's a thing for now that's fulfilling your cup and is giving you something to look forward to and like driving you.
Yeah. So how about you? How did you get started and what did you go through?
Oh, okay. So basically, I actually started lifting weights for football in high school, and yeah, I really really liked the community aspect more than anything, but I liked the kind of the confidence boost that I was getting from being in the weight room and just challenging myself and pushing myself. But then over time, I've got more and more attached to the internal feelings, so to speak, and actually changing my physique rather than doing anything particular with performance. Like performance is cool, but it's just not that satisfying to me. I would rather just have an internal focus and go to the gym and like be in my own world, you know? So over time that's kind of developed into that, and more or less I just really love the actual act of training. Like I really don't care about anything else other than like being in the gym and training. Like in terms of that, like I could be off on my diet, I could be off on everything else, but if my training's really good, everything else in my life feels good. But if
Yeah.
training's off, then it feels like that's like the centerpiece to everything else, and then everything else falls apart.
That's like my one non-negotiable. That isn't a, like I could be off in a different state or doing something else, but my non-negotiable every single day, which I try to put on to like all my clients because it's so vast, is get in an hour of movement every single day. That's my non-negotiable. And I'm the same. Like I freaking love training so much, and people miss that part of the puzzle when they're just starting out because they themselves into it. It's like, no, I have to do this instead of trying to get themselves to enjoy moving their body. And then they focus too much on, I need to increase the weight here. I need to increase the reps here. But it's not all about the reps and the weight. And people miss the like tempo. They miss actually connecting to the muscle group. And I am so grateful that I came across Ben Lucy when I first started my training because he was always about initiate the movement first. So thanks to him, I have never felt chest flies more than I ever did because I used to squeeze my chest like an actual squeeze before I brought it in, whereas people would be like, huh, huh, huh. And it's like, you need to focus on squeezing the muscle before you actually do the movement. I think that brings it up to one of the questions you got. So, what are some of the mistakes that mindsets and mistakes in your lifting years that eventuated over time?
Honestly, I think the biggest mistake that I made and the biggest mistake that most people make that are progressive is getting too aggressive with loading and not keeping their execution in check. So like just piling load on the bar and like, oh, I'm gonna get a new 1 rep, 3 rep, 5 rep max, and not equating to like how much tension is actually on the muscle, because you could very well go from 1 week and escalate the load week to week to week and get less tension every week. It's very odd how that works. Like, you're just getting more shearing forces on your joints and all these connective tissues are just getting beat up and you're not actually training your muscles more. Because like realistically, like a progression may be really fucking slow. Like you literally may add like a rep or like 5 pounds every like couple weeks or a month even when you get more advanced. Like that, it doesn't move fast. But I think that's one of the biggest things is just like rushing the process, whereas muscle maturation is a really long process. Like it literally may like take 16 to 20 weeks for a muscle to fully mature and like changes to actually take place. So it's an interesting thing, and that and probably chasing the pump a little bit too much. like being too focused on instant gratification in both loading and I guess appearance, so to speak. So yeah, I think those are probably the two biggest things, because everything else kind of falls in line with that, and maybe being too attached to the gym as well in terms of like being afraid to take rest days and not eating enough to actually fuel. Like, I'm 6'5" and 240 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, I need a lot of food, but I would be consistently like quote unquote under eating. It's still more than most people would eat, but for my demands, it was way too low. Like, I literally would need to be eating like 5,500, 6,000 calories a day to be like able to really progress.
People don't realize they don't only have to fuel their training, they need to fuel their recovery. Like, it's one of the most, and their lifestyle, it's like one of the most important things. And you are 100% on with the whole loading thing, because people also don't realize that there are muscles that can be progressed more than others, and exercises that can be progressed more than others. And like, for example, the lateral raises, you'll see people going from like 2 kilos to 5 kilos, but there's too much body movement in it. That's why it's so important to actually film yourself and see, am I doing this correctly? Do you have any examples of like injuries or clients or stuff that have done the same thing and how you've conquered it?
Actually, one thing that like lateral step. So I had a client recently. She has a very, very weak serratus, but like we didn't realize that at first. So like, because she's an online client, like I don't get to see like every single thing. You know what I mean? So we're like, okay, we're gonna assess this like the best that I can. And then, but anytime she's going overhead, anytime she's doing like any kind of pressing, like stuff's just not where she wants it. She'll be getting like, lots of tension in her neck, lots of stuff in her upper back and delts, like nothing in her chest. It was just very, very weird. I'm like, okay. She'll do a preacher curl. She's somehow feeling this like all in her connective tissue, no bicep. I'm like, that's really weird. But we think about it, how the serratus actually functions to pull the scapula around the rib cage. All of these things are really connected to your scapula. There's pretty much every muscle in your upper body is either influenced by it or connected to your scapula. So if that can't move around your rib cage efficiently, like you're pretty screwed. So literally just like fixing that, like doing some direct serratus work, and then slowly progressing that, so it could literally be like a serratus fly, and then hey, maybe next time, a couple weeks or months down the line, we move to a serratus push-up, then we move to like a reverse bear crawl, or like just things like that, where we're adding in more complexity over time. So that's actually one of the bigger things in terms of like injuries. I think it's more not paying homage to all of the muscles that attach to particular bones and joints and things of that nature.
People don't understand the body isn't just that muscle group that's working. There are so many, like the whole body is connected through fascia. And I actually was going to say the serratus is one of the most underrated, overlooked muscles, because if you think about the way people are sitting at desk, that in itself is weakening the serratus, because you're like, what's it doing to keep your scapula pulled back? And then you get people with shoulder injuries, and then they go, like even elbow injuries, wrist injuries, all attached to the scapula, and then they go to the physio. The physio works on the elbow, the physio works on the wrist, but they don't go to the root cause, which is the actual muscle of the muscles around the scapula. Just like the client that you posted up in your story regarding his shoulder issue, like people do a lot of bench pressing like this, but then if they do it right like this, at the top they over protract. They don't keep everything in place, so it's just the chest. They do this, and then they do this. And they do the same with all of these other movements without focusing on, okay, what muscles need to work? It's the scapula that needs to do things like one-arm shoulder presses. You want to actually focus on scapular movement. With the bench press, you want to actually focus on the strength part and keep the chest under tension. Like, area of scaption, which is so many people do like shoulder presses like that, or bench presses like this, instead of keeping your arms in the area of scaption, which is actually what loads it, which is what you explained to your client as well. And that's going to lead to a whole other host of injuries. Like, we're going to talk about the squats as well. I'll get you to explain the squats thing. But when people are doing movements that their body and body structure and current posture doesn't allow. There is no perfect posture, but there is dysfunctional posture. And if you're sitting like this at a desk all day, how do you expect to actually do proper overhead presses? Like, are you qualified for the movement that you're doing? You're not qualified to do a shoulder press if this is your posture. You need to first fix what's happening up here before you can do those shoulder press movements. And then you see people doing like pull downs like this. Like, you need to fix this so you're actually loading the muscle. And then that's why you see things like other joints and other tendons get flare-ups. Like with squats, if people are like this and they can't actually get the bar behind their back, or they have hip, like their hips aren't right, their ankles aren't right, they can't actually hit a squat properly, don't give them a back squat. I think the back squat is the most overrated exercise known to mankind. And the barbell, like the conventional barbell deadlift, like there's a hex bar deadlift that you can do. There's other types of squats that you can do. There's squat regressions, like split squats, like Bulgarian split squats, like things that actually work on your range of motion. And then again, doing things like the couch stretch to open up and weaken other areas, but so that they're not going to be overcompensating because there are other weak areas. So squats, let's talk about those.
Well, first off, we have to understand like what's happening around the pelvis and like what are these muscles doing in the first place. So realistically, most people aren't ever going to be training their muscles in the extremes of their range. So, like if they're fully shortened position, they're fully lengthened position, right? So let's say quads, for example. To get them fully shortened under tension, really the only thing we're going to be able to significantly load that with is a leg extension. We're going to get your rectus femoris fully shortened, a muscle that crosses both your knee and your hip, and then all of the other quad muscles will be able to get into their fully shortened range. Whereas to get them fully lengthened, we're going to want our leg behind us in like a split squat type motion with our hips pressed forward and actually be like stretching that out like a couch stretch, but would be more under tension through a dynamic movement. So lots of ways you can do that, but I would say like starting with something as simple as like a leg extension and like a selectorized leg press could be a really, really good start just to learn how to keep tension on those muscles. You can go like a slow on the way down, like 3-4 seconds, 3-4 seconds on the way up, just so that you're like learning what that sensation of tension feels like, and slowly add complexity and add. So like basically you're going to be starting with like isolated joint motions. You're thinking joints before muscles, and then you're slowly being able to take that muscle through its full range as you gain proficiency with each movement. And then eventually, maybe like months down the line, you'll be able to get to a squat pattern, because like realistically, if you don't have all the prerequisites, eventually something's going to break down. So it makes a lot of sense to start someone really, really basic and progress them from there, because we're making sure we're taking care of all of these things along the way. We're taking care of even something as simple as a abdominal crunch, as like a very simple spinal flexion based movement. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be attaching to the front of your pelvis, and if we're not able to stabilize the front of our pelvis, that could even be a lying leg curl, or like any of these kinds of movements where we're like working something on the back of our body. That front of our pelvis still has to be stable to produce enough force in those muscles. So just like taking a lot of things into consideration, it's like, okay, cool, we should probably train our calves at some point, because those are going to also cross our knee joint. Like there's a lot of little things that people don't take into consideration.
Yeah, and going back on the abdominal crunch, it's probably one of the most butchered exercises, because people end up using their hip flex. Well, even reverse crunches, even hanging leg raises, people use too much of their quads. And when I was training those before, I would have them supersetted with a quad movement to actually weaken my flexors, because then my flexors wouldn't kick in. And that's another good thing that comes into the whole, like, if someone wants to have squats front on, you don't need, well, front on as in like straight up in their programming, you don't need to backload it. Like there are other ways to do it. Like there's front loaded squats, there's landmine squats, there's counterbalance squats, there's body weight squats. But you also, people don't realize that, you said it yourself, training and exercise selection and even the exercise order, it's an art, it's a skill. You don't have to start off with compound movements. You can chuck them at the end if you need to do all that basic work beforehand, like putting the quads under load, putting the pelvis where it needs to be, like in the lying leg curl, doing things like a couch stretch, doing things like a front foot elevated split squat to actually get that range of motion, which people butcher to, because they have this thing where your front knee can't go over your front toe when it's actually supposed to. And they lean their torso instead of keeping their torso up to actually get the stretch through the back leg. Like if you do that stuff before doing a squat, you are going to be able, because you're loading the stretch. You stretch without the load, and then you stretch with the load, and then you're more able to put yourself into a squat position because you're not having all those limitations. You've just moved through it. You've just weighted yourself through those ranges of motion. So now you can do a squat pattern. It doesn't need to be backloaded. The front squat is the most underrated squat, is what I would say, because not only does it teach you to hold an upright thorax, but it teaches you to use your core. It teaches you to brace, because if you don't brace, you're gonna front topple. What's the most underrated squat exercise or squat variation in your opinion?
Depends what for, realistically. If we're talking for actual hypertrophy, a hack squat. If we're talking for more like we'll just say like function, probably in terms of like all the things you have to manage around that joint, probably the front squat realistically, just because you're having to manage your spine a little bit more. But that would go way later into a progression because of that in itself. So if you really wanted to like get that front squat type loading pattern, you could even just do like a goblet squat, just so that you're having that like weight pulling you forward, shifting you forward, because like where that weight is in relation to your center of mass is going to change the way that those forces are traveling through your body. So I think one of the biggest things is like people don't realize how weights are owning them rather than like them owning the weight, so to speak. Like it's taking them through a range of motion rather than them taking the weight through a range of motion.
Yeah. So it's important, like I would say close your eyes sometimes to try and focus on the feeling, and don't overthink things, because if you overthink things, you're not letting your body do like the pattern of motion that it's supposed to do. Like you're like, oh, I need to feel this, instead of close your eyes and then initiate with it first, because then you're going to make yourself feel it. You're owning that weight. And you actually, you always bring up these good points without realizing it. You said for hypertrophy, and then you mentioned the hack squat. People think that you need to use free weight as the best thing for everything, and that machines don't have a place. But you can actually load more and more safer on machines if hypertrophy is the goal. Like you always need to say, okay, what is the goal of this session? Is it to learn a squat pattern? Is it to do this? Is it to do this? Or is it the hypertrophy? So in my opinion, machines always have a place, but it depends what for. Like sometimes you don't need machines at all within a, like by machines, I also mean cables, but they do have a place. And so do barbells, and so do dumbbells. So you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose?
Well, if we think about it, it's like, okay, let's say we want to load our tricep in its most shortened position, like load the long head of our tricep in its most shortened position. You really can't do that with a dumbbell. You know what I mean? Like you're going to need some type of cable or some type of machine to add resistance to that. Like you could do it with a band, but the significance of that tension across the entire range of motion is going to be less. So it's just like understanding the inherent benefits and trade-offs of different loading patterns and the resistance curves and the strength profile. Like how strong is that muscle at what point of that range of motion, and where is that weight heaviest in that range of motion is going to be a big deciding factor. And in terms of hack squats, the reason why I'm looking hack squat specifically, number one, generally we're going to be able to get a lot of knee flexion, and then we get the opportunity to either band or reverse band that to change the profile, or like technically we could band it at the top and the bottom and do some weird stuff, but that's like super extra for most people. That's something that I would do for myself, but most people aren't going to want to do that, right? So, but if we're looking at hypertrophy, overall, we're going to need to add more volume over time. The more volume we add, the more systemically taxing that is. Like our whole body, our whole being is fatigued. So the more we can limit or at least manage the amount that we're loading our spine directly, aka a squat, a deadlift, something like that, where it's very like centrally heavy, like it's just loading your spine, your central nervous system directly, we're going to want to manage that a lot because we're going to be adding more sets over the course of a hypertrophy phase, most likely, and or at least like over the course of blocks of this type of training, with that being the goal. So, and you're going to get more output in general on the more stable the exercise is. Like if it's very unstable and you're having to manage a lot of joints, that muscle itself isn't going to get as much output. The muscle itself is going to get the most output on the most simple exercises, because that's the only thing you're having to manage, like that single or like that maybe 2 joint motions. Like you're managing your knee joint and your hips in a hack squat. That's really not a lot versus that like a load of a barbell squat, like shifting you forward, backwards, you're having to like stabilize your feet, like all of these other things where it's not as much of a consideration with a hack squat. So you can focus more on that muscle versus if you're focusing on a movement, it's not the same, because then you are going to want those like skill-based movements.
Yeah, that you said something before in our chat together about the fatigue ratio. So, this is another reason why exercise ordering is really important, unless, of course, you need to put the squat at the end of a workout because of that structural balance work that you need to do beforehand to enable you to do the squat, which you're not actually going to be doing a maximal loaded squat. Like, that's the whole point. You're wanting to get the adaptation without needing to load it as much. But there's that fatigue ratio. Like, that's the best, to me, that's the best thing about using barbells and dumbbells is that it's your whole system needs to work to use those implements, and it's more functional, so to speak. But if you're working to how much quality work are you doing? That is what it's all about. It's not just junk volume. You don't want to be just training for the sake of putting in the movements, because are you trying to get adaptations or are you trying to nail yourself to the ground? That was one of my biggest mistakes when I was starting out. I used to want to walk out crawling. You should be walking out with more energy than you walked in most of the time, unless, of course, you're getting into the latter stages of a phase and you're working your ass off to the point where, okay, I am dead because I'm at that overreaching phase. But you don't want to be doing some freaking crazy circuitry shit towards the end of a workout if you're now fatigued after everything you already did. This is where machines can then come into place, because you're not needing to stabilize your body. You're not going to actually injure your body. You're using less fatiguing work to actually put the muscles under load, and you're not other muscles aren't coming to the party, so to speak. So think about the fatigue that certain exercises invoke on your body. And that's again why you said that the machines come into play there is, okay, it's not putting in as much systemic fatigue as, say, using a barbell to do the same thing, because you're having to think about your body moving through space versus, okay, I'm moving this machine.
Yeah, and I think that changes with training age too. As the skill is higher, that changes. So for example, earlier on in training, I would have trained my squat first. Now I'll literally go to the gym, I'll do an ab crunch, I'll do a prone cobra, I'll do an adductor movement, I'll do leg extensions, a seated leg curl, and then I'll squat. And then I'll train a glute-based movement, either a split squat or a 45-degree hip extension, whether I want to bias more glute and quad or glute and hamstring together, and then something for calves, in this current phase. Earlier on, all of that stuff would have came way later in the session, and the squat would come first, because now I'm trying to limit the central fatigue. I might only have 275 on my back, or whatever, 130 kilos or 125 or whatever that equates to, versus having 350 or 400 pounds. You know what I mean? That's just different, because okay, the goal is to train my muscles. I want them to be very fatigued coming into this, because I don't want to load my spine super heavy. But if, let's say, you're training 3 days a week, you're hitting each muscle group once a week, you want a lot of spinal loading, because you're going to want to fuck yourself up, because you only have 3 days to create that adaptation. So you want to be very centrally fatigued from 3 days. If you're training 5 days, there's more considerations, because you're going to have to recover from all 5 days of training. You don't have 4 days to recover. You have 2.
That is actually really
Yeah.
good point to pull up. It's like, how many days do you realistically have to train? If you're only training like 3 days a week, I'm training 3 days a week. So I need to do my full body 3 days a week, because otherwise I'm not going to be hitting the same muscle groups enough to create the stimulus that I need. But my training right now is very different. I'm doing like a mixed modal type of thing where I do a power movement, like a box jump, and then I'm doing like a repetition max of something. But that's different than what I used to do, because now it's just a skill thing versus the hypertrophy that I used to do when I was still running. That was still a full body thing. But you are so right. It's like, you don't want to overly, unless you're a powerlifter and you need to actually build your weight up for a certain movement, like the squat, the bench, the deadlift. You, like, getting to a certain amount of strength, that is what you need. But after that, what is it going to bring to your life? Like, what exactly is it doing for you? As long as you can do one trip grocery shops, that's all I really care about, because I don't want to go to the car 100 times to bring bags out. But like, there's only so much strength that you realistically need to make it through life. Like, if you're so hyper focused on the gym and the kitchen that you're missing all the other aspects of life, I would say you're doing it wrong, because fitness and health are meant to enhance your life. You need to look outside of the box and do internal work first. Because if you're that micro focused on, I want to smash myself in the gym, then I would say there's other things going on in your life that you are trying to avoid. So take the holistic approach first, because the whole point is to not walk out so freaking fatigued that you have no energy for life. And then this is where people get issues with, okay, why isn't my weight budging? Why am I putting on weight? It's because you're smashing yourself so much in that 1 hour in the gym that for the other freaking 20 hours, whatever the hell of the day, you're sitting on your ass or on the couch because you're that fucked up. Like, no. You need to realize that like, you can be active as hell in the gym and then sit on your ass all day, and you were still sedentary. You are still sedentary. You do not burn as many calories as you think when you're training. I don't even know, because these things aren't accurate, but I would say I burn about 200 calories in a gym session versus the rest of my day where I burn the rest of my calories, kind of thing. Like, there is a big difference between someone who gets their steps up and has their non-exercise activity up versus someone who sits on their ass all day. Like, now my steps are around 20,000 a day, and that, compared to what they were before, that has actually enabled me to eat that much more, because I'm maintaining at, like, for reference, I'm 5'3" and whatever 56.5, 57 kilos is over there. I'm small, so I am maintaining my body on about 2,500 calories versus before I would be maintaining on about 2,000 calories, 2,200 calories. Like, that NEAT is a big component of it.
Well, if we're thinking about somebody that's really striving for performance, we're going to probably be looking at more of a high energy fluxing diet versus something that's restrictive in nature. So it's like, we just need more nutrients, more food overall coming in, but we need to output a lot so that we can balance that equation. And like, having that high energy flux is a really good place to be for performance. But if we're looking to like get maximally jacked, we're gonna have a lot of food coming in and not a lot of movement, really. And then if we're looking to get super lean, we're gonna have not a lot of food and a ton of movement. I mean, it's really just like balancing the equation between these to different magnitudes depending on what you're really trying to achieve. And like, it doesn't have to be crazy complex. You can be intuitive as fuck about it if you really want. But it's just like keeping yourself accountable to not like, oh my God, I'm starving now, let's eat like an asshole. It's like, okay, no matter what you do, just eat like an adult. Like, you don't even have to track anything if you really don't want to. Like, if you can really be like that intuitive and clued in, you don't have to track. But like, you have to be like super okay with being like not feeling great all the time. Like, if you're pushing in like one direction or another, like, because if you're really like staying at like a like homeostatic set point, like, that's really not hard. But if you have like any kind of goal at all, like, I'm sure you don't wake up every day and like want to go do 20,000 steps. Like, you have to like have some kind of internal chatter to do it. Like, at least like to some degree, like there's no way that you wake up every single day and are like, I can't wait to just be crazy today and just like do all kinds of shit. It's like some days like I wake up and I'm like, fuck this. This is not what I want to do. But you go back, you link the things that you're doing, whether it's like inactivity, whether it's working with a client or making a post or whatever that is, you're like linking that to your highest values. And for whatever reason, you've made a strong enough link to your highest values that this is a part of that that's getting you closer to those.
I love that. You're always linking your values to something, linking your why. Like, why are you doing something? Because if it's, this is a really good client example. I had a client who we've changed her mindset now because we focused on that internal work, but she was very hard on to start with, and then she'd lose her mojo and go quiet for a while because she feels lost. So she started off with this app with her sister where they were challenging each other for the most steps. She was unsustainably hitting 20,000 steps a day. And then all of a sudden she went quiet. And I had the conversation with her, and then she realized that she was losing her motivation. I'm like, okay, this is why I told you a million times already. You just weren't listening because you weren't ready to listen to the answers, is you need to make it fit your lifestyle. So then, before that, she actually joined one of those online virtual challenges where you like go through the mountains and shit like that. That was great for her. And then she lost her mojo and she stopped signing up for the challenges. And then she did that challenge with her sister. And then I got her focusing more on internal, and now she went and bought a home gym. So now she's focusing on just her internal strength and what her body can do and making it part of her lifestyle. And that's the thing with the 20,000 steps. Like, you make it part of your lifestyle in a way that serves what you do. So for me, I would train and then I would walk after it. And that's where I do a lot of my online work on my phone. Like, it fits in. And I spend about 50 minutes to an hour walking after my session just to do some content on my phone. Like, it's better than just sitting on my ass scrolling my phone doing stuff. Like, you can even read ebooks on your phone while you're walking. It doesn't need to be intense stuff. Like, do things that make you a better person in that time. It might be listening to a podcast. It might be listening to an ebook. Just add movement with it. And neurons that wire together fire together. I'm sure you heard that from Brandon as well. But yeah, neurons that wire together fire together. And it's that movement and then that thinking. And then when you re-listen to it, like I do it all the time, I listen to something while I'm running. And then I'll listen to it again in the morning, because now I've created a new routine where I wake up at 4:30 and I lie in bed until 5. But for that 30 minutes, I have a podcast playing and I actually absorb it so much better in that first 30 minutes of my day before I get up at 5 o'clock and start my day. And then whenever I'm actually doing activity, like in the gym or long runs, I can't do it when I'm sprinting because I'm too focused. I will listen to the podcast and then re-listen to it, and it sinks in a lot more. And that's the same with my nighttime walk. Like, because I'm working at the computer all day, I want to leave work at work, which is what I try to tell all my clients to do. After work, leave work at work, go for a walk, break it up, and then continue on with your day. Like, have that full stop between work and life. And a walk, doing something that kind of breaks up that thing, which for me, it's using my phone doing client work. It's not listening to a podcast because that feels like more work. I do something else in that walk time, and then I continue with my day. So how do you fit your fitness and health into your lifestyle for you?
It depends on when. So I've gotten very far into periodizing literally everything. So that will literally go as far as periodizing my relationships, my relationship with myself, like self-care stuff, my training, nutrition. I use PEDs. Usually I'm using like TRT, but like that's a consideration too. Like if I was going and prepping for something very specific, like a photo shoot or something like that, that's going to be an equation. Like that's going to be part of it, you know, like that's just a trade-off and something that I accept. Like I'm okay with if I cut off a little bit of time on the back end of my life, because I don't know, drugs can be fun, you know, and you got to live. So whatever fulfills you, whatever fills your cup. That's like the same thing as like using psychedelics or like any of this kind of stuff. Like there's a time and a place for everything. It's just like it's not always the time and it's not always the place, and you can't do it all at once. So it's like, okay, I have this finite amount of stress. Number one, if I'm looking at this from like an overarching lens, if I'm gonna do anything, it's probably going to be like keeping in some level of aerobic work, even if it's just walks outside, because that's going to technically increase my capacity to handle all stress. So then I just have like more ability overarchingly. So like that's a baseline. We just have like daily walks outside, covering both sun exposure and just like some low-level aerobic work. And if I see my autonomics getting out of whack, my resting heart rate's getting too high, blood pressure, whatever, like cool, go into a phase of like more designated aerobic work, but that can just be like a maintenance, just walks. It can be very simple, can listen to an audio book, can go on a walk with Kayla, like however I want to do it, just like that's a daily thing. It's like, cool, okay, how many times do I want to train now? Okay, well, where I'm at right now, I personally train 4 times a week, but 3 of those are more stressful sessions, one's a lower stress session. It's just a push-pull legs and then a delts and arms workout. Not crazy, but it fits in right now, and then it's like, cool. Later on, in a month, I'm going to be pushing to prep for a photo shoot. Then I titrate that up. Maybe I pull back on some of the meals out with friends and family, like late nights with Kayla, like stuff like that. It's like, hey, guess what? We're going to do this a little bit less. We're going to be a little bit more structured in this so that I can output more in this avenue. And it's just like an ever-shifting thing, right? Like you have to select, like, what are my priorities for this point in time? And you really can't achieve balance at any one time, but you can achieve balance over an extended period. So it's like, okay, this is a very unbalanced period, this is an unbalanced period, this is an unbalanced period. But if you look at it over a year-long or a 2-year, 5-year-long period, it is pretty balanced. Like you're spending a relatively like equal amount of time on a lot of things, but it's just like at any given time, whether it's a 2, 5, 7, 10-month time span, maybe you're more shifting that stress allocation toward training or toward your education or toward client acquisition and whatever it is, you know what I mean? So that's kind of like how I think about everything. I just like fit it in like little puzzle pieces. Like, how this is my main value right now. How can I fit these other pieces? Okay, cool. Drop this thing out. This isn't important enough. And then, but there's like always at least like some training to some capacity. Like I don't really ever go below 3 days a week. I don't think that 3 days a week or less than 3 days a week is really ideal. Just because there's a limited ability once you get to a certain level of advancement to be able to add enough stress to your system in 2 days. 3 days, I believe you can do it and make really good progress still.
I love that. It's about knowing your non-negotiables, and something that I also live by that you mentioned, which I love, is balance is context, like context for you in your moment right now. Balance means something different to everyone. You can never have the perfect balance, but what does balance mean for you in this moment right now? Like for me in this moment right now, it's not as much on friends and family, but I know that next year it will be, once, because I'm coming up to a peak where, okay, I'm waiting until this house goes and then I move into my new place. Like there's things that matter to you right now in the moment, and then things that matter to you, like you're planning ahead, you're periodizing for, okay, so I know that I need to put a lot more of my energy, or focus goes, energy flows. I need to put a lot more of my energy into this now, and then I'll titrate it here and there. And that's the most important thing. Like there's always a sacrifice. Like if you're being so focused on your training right now, you're sacrificing a lot of other life. So it's important to, someone said something so powerful to me. It's like you have 100% battery here kind of thing. If you have 5 things you're giving your attention to, that's 20% in each area. You're not able to actually give as much attention to one particular thing. But then if you're going to say, okay, I want to put 60% into this, and you still have the 5 things, you're not going to have as much of a percentage in the other things as well. So if you narrow your focus even more, then you're leaving less and less percentage of energy and stress allowance to the other things, because everything is a stress. Like everything is a stress in your body. Your body, you may not recognize it, but everything comes with stress value. And that's why it's so important to then bring yourself down as well. Like you need to have that balance, whatever balance means to you in some way or form. So you have your non-negotiables, but you need to also always have a non-negotiable of self-care, because if you don't, you're going to wear yourself out and plummet out. So what is a non-negotiable with self-care for you?
Honestly, a non-negotiable is for me to meditate twice a day and read in the morning. So like I'll read 30 minutes every morning, because once you start reading, you almost like you can go to bed and get restorative sleep and whatever, but once you wake up, do you ever go to sleep and you just feel like very, very driven and motivated and excited, and you wake up and it's gone? You're like, oh, well, I don't feel the same way I felt last night. What the hell? And then you have to like kind of start it back over again. It's like starting the lawnmower. You know, you just like ran out of gas. Like it's fine. Like you just got to find like where's the gas. So the gas for me is I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna shower. I'm gonna start my coffee. I'm gonna meditate for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna go sit down with the red light in front of me and read. Cool. I've got this like whole photon exchange happening with the red light. I'm getting caffeinated. I've got lion's mane, like increased BDNF and nerve growth factor. I'm reading this book and like you're like falling into the habit, because then you like rewire all of these things. Like you already have them set up. Like when you have supplements and behaviors paired habitually, then you can make significant changes really, really quickly. It's like, cool, I'm going to have a little bit of ashwagandha before my meditation. Here's the habitual pairing. I'm going to have some lion's mane and red light with my reading, habitual pairing. In the nighttime, same thing, ashwagandha, and maybe I'll have like some phosphatidylserine or vitamin C or like whatever I want to use for that specific need. Boom, pair that with the meditation. And like these have different results on different ends of the day and like different intents. So it's like, how are you approaching this, and like what's the intent behind this behavior that you're seeking? And it doesn't fucking matter what it is, but like you could wake up in the morning and go for a walk. You could wake up and like lay and talk to your spouse or whatever that is. Make it a constant thing that fills your cup so that you can count on that to like fall into the space that you want to get into every day. Because if you wake up and you have this like willy-nilly thing, like you have to have non-negotiables on the bookends of your day. Like you've got to be able to sleep well. You've got to be able to wake up and be productive. Those are crucial. All the stress happens in the middle of the day. But like you're in control of the beginning and the end. It's like if you have a really busy mind, brain dumping in the end of the day, great idea. Literally just piece of paper, write everything on your mind, get it out, feel okay with it because you can see it in front of you, like cool. Oh, rest assured, I'm not going to lose it. Here it is. Go to sleep. You're good. But if you don't have a busy mind, like maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you just like do a gratitude log. Just like be very, very grateful, because it's incredible. You can't be hateful if you're being grateful, basically. That's how one of my friends puts it. But you have to take a holistic approach to all of this stuff if you want to actually make progress. You really are never going to reach your fullest potential if you don't.
That's the stuff I love the most, actually, the holistic view of everything, because you can't have the body without the mind, and you can't have the mind without the body. Like the brain, like think about it. Your brain is what does everything. Your brain is what moves muscles. Your brain is what is in control of your whole body. If your brain isn't feeling safe, your body's not going to feel safe. And if you're not feeling at peace with the way things are around you, you're not going to feel at peace with things within you. And then you go into a session feeling freaking frazzled as fuck. You're not even going to perform your best. Your mind's not even going to be in the session. Your intent's not going to be in the session. Same with your food. If your goal is to have a certain body composition or to get somewhere with your relationship with food, you're not going to get anywhere if your mind isn't in it. It's all about the holistic nature of everything, because you cannot have the physical without the mental, without the health aspect. Like mind and body, honestly, are the strongest link to everything. And then people worry about gut health. They worry about all these other things that, once again, everything starts in the mind. And the bookends is something that I have been harping on about for so long. Always have your bookends, and always have something that brings you back down to earth before you sleep. Like you said, the brain dumping is so important. I used to do that all the time. Now it's just a natural thing with me. Like I leave it where it is. I actually write my lists somewhere through the day. I have all my to-do lists up here, and then I go down and I sleep. And I knock out straight away. I put on a podcast, and normally listening to podcasts actually puts me to sleep, or it focuses me. So it can do either find what puts you to sleep. It might be an ebook, it might be listening to music, put a timer on it, and then you can get yourself to sleep that way, or read a book. But if you use your phones, put it on the blue light filter or something like that. You don't want to be looking at a really bright light screen, because that's going to wake you up. But find what works for you and keep it in there as a routine. Do not compromise those bookends if you want to have a successful middle, because you get, like, especially women, we give so much of ourselves to everything around us because we feel like we need to be doing everything for this person, for that person, for our husbands, our boyfriends, our kids, our this, our that, we feel like everything is on us to do everything. Somehow we still believe that we're the ones that have to control the world. No, you can ask for help. No, you can actually take a step back. Because if you do not give to yourself first, you're a mess here. You're not going to be your best self for everyone else. You need to rest and give to yourself so that you can give yourself. It's not about filling your cup so that you can pour it into others. It's about filling your cup so much that it overfills into others. That's the goal.
And if you really want to create change in others, you've got to change yourself first. That shit bleeds into everybody. Like, if you're like, you have this like deeply rooted issue with a client, like they can't heal it, you might have that issue in yourself, and that might be something to look at. It's like, am I actually practicing what I preach? Because once you start doing that, it's amazing how much in alignment your clients become too. Like, if you set that standard, they're going to see that. Like, you're interacting with them, especially if you're talking to them on the phone or seeing them in person or like doing video calls or anything like that, they're going to really see it. But like, people feel vibes, whether they like know it or admit it, like they do. We're humans. We literally communicate through vibrations. Like, this is whatever language we're speaking doesn't really matter. It's like, how does that person make you feel without words?
It's so true. Your vibe. Everyone underestimates the power of vibe. Like, the more you can even vibe yourself, that's the thing. Like, be so positive that you only can feel positive in yourself, but realize it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to feel negative. It's okay to be human, but realize that your vibe sets the tone for the rest of your day. It sets the tone for those around you. People absorb that shit. People absorb it. And you take however you vibe in the morning through the rest of the day with you. Don't let one moment sabotage you.
Well, that's the thing, is you're basically bulletproofing yourself. If you have really stable bookend routines, you're like bulletproofing yourself against that happening, against like these little stresses like seeping into your day. Like, don't fucking be on your phone in these routines. Like, once you start this routine, you wake up, don't be on your phone till you're done. Same thing in the night. It's like, hey, phone's off, now I start my routine. But you've got to do it in the same exact order every single time. Like, you can change it sometime. Like, you can be like, okay, cool, I'm going to set a new routine, but don't be sporadic with it, because then you're going to run into issues of, there's this, okay, how do I put this? Basically, it's really hard to break habits. So you might as well work in your favor and habitually do the things that you want to do. Because, like, or else you're going to habitually do the things you don't want to do, and you're going to habitually be unhappy, basically. Like, your habit is being unhappy and unfulfilled. Wow, that sucks. Why don't you just pick things that you like? Because you only get one life, and it's your choices. Nobody else can make or break your happiness except for you. So if you're in a circumstance, it is your fault. Like, as mean as that can sound, like, there's so many people that have been so down in the dumps about this whole, like, COVID. Like, it's been the fucking best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, my life has only improved. Like, if someone tells me, like, oh, there's been all these things, like, everything's just been so fucked, like, I can't relate to that. But, like, if you're vibing above all of these things, you really don't be affected by it.
This is, again, coming back to the whole holistic view. Like, you need to realize behaviors come first. I learned this off a chat that someone was talking about the way that David Goggins works, and he somehow hacked the system. You need to realize your behavior comes first, and then the thoughts and the emotions come after that, and then your perceptions follow. So you need to behave yourself. You need to act yourself into how you want to overcome certain situations. Like, you can't keep taking the victim mentality. Yeah, sometimes shit sucks, but you need to make the most of it. Otherwise, you're going to stay stuck in that situation. You literally are choosing to stay stuck in that situation if you don't start taking the actions first. And then you'll start thinking differently. You'll start feeling differently, and then you'll start perceiving differently. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I always say this thing of, you brought the habits are hard to break. I always say this analogy. It's like having thick cables going through your head. You're not going to break those, but you can create smaller new ones. And the more that you repeat through those, the thicker those get. And the more shaky and crumbled these ones get. But they're always going to be there. It's just that these ones are getting stronger. And, like, that is the important thing. It's about knowing what you want to create, what you want to do to create the life that you want, to create what is going to serve you, so that it is a powerful driving force, and it's going to only get stronger. And habit stacking is a really important thing as well. Like, know exactly the habits that you need to do to get to where you want to be, and do them, keep them habitual. It is so important. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think there's also a really big factor of people won't allow themselves to do the things that are going to be the most fulfilling to them. Like, number one, you only see the things that you're choosing to see. So, like, for example, I do this shit all the time because, like, I'm tunnel vision when I'm going through my day. Like, Kayla literally, like, reorganized the whole front porch and, like, put different plants out there and everything, and I just straight up walked right past it and didn't even notice it. Like, I didn't see it at all because, like, in the car, I'm like, okay, these are the things I have next. Like, I'll just close my eyes, release tension really quick, set the intention for the next thing I'm going to do, and I go do it. And, like, I don't see anything else on the way to doing that. But, like, you literally see what you're looking for. Like, if you're looking for bad shit, you're going to see bad shit. Like, if you're looking to meet new people and to make connections, you're going to find some awesome new people. Where you're like, oh, wow, my intention for today is to go have a new cool experience. Guess what? You're going to find one. It's not like these things are hidden. They're only hidden because you're not choosing to see them. Like, there's a realm of opportunities that's out there. You can have anything that you want to have, but you have to have the belief that you deserve it too.
I love that. You need to, my quote at the moment is, how can you expect to achieve if you don't believe?
Well, that's the thing with, like, coaches, for example. If you're struggling to grow your business, you're not investing enough into that. Like, for example, if you go purchase a course, I guarantee you every course you purchased, you've made way more money because of purchasing it. Like, I just literally spent $370 a month on a coach. I'm working with James from the Muscle Mentors. That's a fucking investment, you know what I mean? Like, that's not nothing. But at the same rate, like, I'm going to make way more money on the other end of that. It's like, why would you not make that investment? For example, I had a client just the other day. I'll just throw out numbers. For one of my packages, I do video chats, and we'll talk back and forth for a live check-in every week for 30 minutes online on, like, just a Zoom call. We'll talk throughout the week. Like, it's very, very individualized. $300 a month. I think that's very reasonable for the amount of work that I do, and she sent me $900 for 3 months worth of coaching. That same week, 2 days later, she went and got an LLC for her own company because she felt so inspired because she just made that investment. And then she took on 4 new clients, and then she went to her accountant and ended up finding out she's saving $700 a month. Like, it's not a coincidence. Like, when you invest in yourself, abundance arises. Like, every single time.
The most important, like, that's the biggest thing you just said, and that's exactly where I started seeing a lot more growth in what I do. Like, my coach is $600 a month.
Yeah.
So mine is massive. It's $300 a fortnight, so $600 a month for my coach. And part of a mentorship package, I think it was $7,000 for the whole year on top of that. And it's like, because I'm investing in becoming a better coach, it's opening up, like, you feel more confident in everything that you do. You look for ways to improve yourself because you're investing in yourself. If you choose what you invest into, and it's your perception of what you're investing into, are you investing into yourself, or are you investing into going partying every night and getting blind drunk? Like, you are your investments. If you're not investing in your health, you're going to have poor health, and you're going to have to invest in that health later on in the form of medication, in the form of, I need to fix my shit, instead of, I need to build myself up so that I don't have shit to fix in the future.
No, absolutely. And I think I forgot this is only an hour limit on these things, so I think we have 1 minute and 10 seconds left. So we'll have to do another one of these in 2 weeks. I'm doing one with my friend Jevin next Sunday, and then we'll do another one in 2 weeks. So I'm sure we'll just, like, probably continue talking, like, every day. That seems like it's how it's going. So give me a wrap-up, something that you're looking forward to doing today, and we'll cut it.
Today, I'm actually doing a podcast with one of my clients on the importance of routines. And the reason I'm so excited about that is because we just talked about it here, and it's so important to have routines. And people can judge you for being so set in your ways, but that's the thing. Like, our routines can make or break us. But I'm actually just excited to start my day, because I'm always excited to start my day, because you choose how you fill your day. Your turn.
I am looking forward to doing some vision mapping with Kayla today, and we're going to actually set 5-year, 3-year, 1-year, and 6-month vision boards, and then make a combined vision board with all of those culminating together. So,
I love that.
we're about to cut
I
off.
love that.
All right.
Woohoo!